Welcome back. You're watching The Pulse, and live pictures you see there. City of London, FTSE 100 trading by more than 1% lower at the moment. And want to focus on a topic that's causing temperatures to rise again in the boardroom. It's executive pay. WPP, the world's biggest advertising agency, is set to face protests at its AGM later. Shareholders are angry over CEO Martin Sorrell's pay package. Poppy Trowbridge with me now. She's been digging into the details of this story. Poppy, anger over pay, it's been an issue since the financial crisis. I guess it's nothing new, right?
Well, the financial crisis really kicked this issue off with the focus on giant banker bonuses. But now concern is really spreading to the high level of pay in other industries. And WPP, in just a couple of hours' time in Dublin, is going to hold its annual shareholder meeting. And the CEO will face questions not just about his pay and his salary, but that of many other senior executives at the company. But do these revolts ever make much of a difference? Unless more than half of the shareholders vote down the specific pay plans, companies really aren't obliged to make any changes. But their voices are being heard because this week Tesco changed the way it pays some of its senior executives in response to that investor anger. And M&S as well, Marks & Spencer's, is changing its pay policy. Finally, the UK government is looking into the issue, Mariam, and their findings are due out later this month.
Good stuff. Thanks very much for rounding that up for us, Poppy. So Martin Sorrell's firm, not the only one under fire for board-level remuneration. Top executives at FTSE 100 companies saw their median earnings increase 32% to £3.5 million last year, as you can see there. The FTSE itself rose only 9% over the same period. Meanwhile, the average employee's salary increased just 2%. That's as inflation accelerates to more than double that. That means workers now facing the biggest squeeze in real wages since the 1920s. Compensation for FTSE 100 executives averaged 120 times more than for the ordinary worker, and that's thanks to a 70% increase in payouts under long-term incentive plans and share option schemes. I want to get more on this now from a man who's advised the top performers at some of the world's most successful financial institutions. Chris Roebuck is former head of global talent at UBS. He's also held senior human resources roles at KPMG and HSBC. These days, he's visiting professor of transformational leadership at London's Cass Business School. He joins me now. That's a good title, isn't it? Transformational leadership. That could mean so many things.
That's what organisations and chief executives should be doing. They should be transforming their organisations with better performance. And that's what happens. If they do that, they should get paid. If they don't, they shouldn't.
So you don't think there's a problem with executive pay?
I do think there's a problem with executive pay. If you look at the figures you've quoted, if you look at the fact that over the last 10 years, the differential between FTSE 100 chief executive pay and the average pay of everyone else has grown by double, are we really saying that in that last 10 years, every single FTSE has improved its performance by double? It's twice as competitive, twice as much in terms of shareholder return? The answer is patently no. So obviously the link between organisational performance and what chief executives get is not directly related. There's something else going on.
Which is?
Which is the fact that a very strong chief executive who suddenly sees somebody in the same industry down the road getting more than them is naturally going to go to the remuneration committee and say, this isn't right, I'm not being paid sector average, and therefore you need to pay me more. And to be blunt...
Well, that's fair enough, isn't it?
Well, not if they're not performing. Let's be honest, you know, if the market's going up by X%, or the peer performance of their peer organisations is going up by Y%, and that chief executive isn't matching that benchmark, to be blunt, they shouldn't be getting a bonus. But the problem is that many remuneration committees and many NEDs, in the face of a chief executive who wants more cash, are tending to roll over.
Right. I mean, I guess, you know, some would argue that it's fair enough. You know, it's a bit of a, in terms of attracting the best talent there is, it's in the company's interest, the company to be profitable. It's in the shareholder interest as well. Is there not something to be said for that too?
Absolutely. If you want to attract the people that deliver the financial bottom line, that deliver the dividends to shareholders, you're going to have to pay. But you shouldn't be paying for mediocre people who don't deliver the goods. And that's what's happening in some of these cases. Chief executive performance should be down to whether you beat the competition and whether you beat the market.
So, I mean, is it more Is it more obvious in some industries and others? Where do you think it's concentrated, this sort of disconnect or discrepancy between company performance and pay? How would you compare?
You can look at what's going on in a number of places. For example, public sector, maximum chief executive pay in the public sector is roughly 20 to average. FTSE, we've just said, it's about 120 to average. Financial services, it's 170 to average. If you look at what's happening in Europe, most chief executives in Europe are hovering around 30. Japan, it's around 15 to average. But interestingly, the US, Standard & Poor's, top 500, that's running at high 200s to average. And that's why, for example, the Dodd-Frank Act is coming in the States in July, where there will be compulsory disclosure of the relationship between the chief executive's pay and the average person. Now, that's not necessarily a good measure, because obviously in industries like hospitality, there are a lot of low-paid workers, and maybe in pharma, you've got a lot of high-paid workers, so that skews the figures. Really, the key judge of chief executive performance is our chief executive performing better than the other chief executives in the sector, and has he beaten the market?
That's the criteria. OK, well, thank you very much for coming in. Good to get your thoughts. Chris Roebuck, Cass Business School here in London. Actually have some breaking news coming out